So first of all, thank you so much. I want to dive right into the questions. I got some really good questions from some friends of mine who are big fans of the magazine as well. And
Oh, great. Awesome.
yeah, they follow your work and everything. My first question would be, I'd love to know how you manage your day, because you are doing a lot. Like, I've been watching you. You do the podcast. You are doing interviews. You're the editor of the magazine. How do you stay productive? What does your typical day look like?
Well, that is something that I'm always trying to do better. I would not say that I'm the best at it, but I do at least. I'm adjusting here. Sorry, I'm going to answer that again because I feel like I'm probably popping into that microphone because that thing was so close. Okay, let me. I'll just answer again. Yeah, that's something that I'm really trying to figure out how to do better. I have to be honest. I think I am good at certain things. Obviously, I am managing quite a lot of projects all at the same time. I'm editor-in-chief of the magazine. I also write quite a lot for the magazine. And then there's, of course, a lot of stuff that you don't see in terms of editing and other things that I'm doing for the brand and social media stuff. I also have 2 podcasts that I host. I wrote a novel with my wife that's coming out in October called Mr. Nice Guy. I do public keynote engagements, and then there are other little projects. I developed this website last year called Crossing. It's a search engine for street intersections. So I am doing a lot. And my 2 big pieces of advice that have served me fairly well is, one, experiment with teams. Every product and project that you do has some kind of a team around it, and you need to be constantly figuring out how that team can be more effective. So I'm always tweaking the teams and always trying to see if we change this, does it make that more efficient, and so on. So there's a lot of that. And then 2 is I started thinking about time in terms of value, which helped me really stay on track. So somebody once told me that you can or should think about spending time the way that you think about spending money. Like, you don't spend it haphazardly, and you don't spend it on crap. You spend it on things that matter. And so if you start to think about time in that way, you will start to say, well, okay, if I have this hour, what value can I get out of this hour? Does this hour go towards like checking Twitter? If it does, that's an hour down the drain. Like, you just wasted time, which is wasting money. But if I think, okay, well, if I spend this next hour on the podcast, that means that next week people get to listen to the podcast. And if I don't spend it this week, then it doesn't. Like, tomorrow's accomplishments don't just happen, they happen today. And thinking about that has kept me on track in a way in which I block out my days and I make sure that I'm hitting all of my stuff. And I don't like goof around on social media as much, and I don't read crap anymore. Like, I used to spend all this time reading all this like political crap and just getting myself anxious. And you know what? It's like, that's for somebody else. It's not for me anymore, because I have to spend my time more wisely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, I am also very curious about something you said in an interview that I read somewhere. You said that entrepreneurship, and I agree with you, was not an occupation only anymore, but it was more of an attitude.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know, what do you think that attitude looks like? Like, what is the entrepreneurial attitude about?
Yeah, I say that because the word entrepreneur has come to mean such a different thing now. A brand that I am editor-in-chief of here has been around for 40 years. And for most of that time, the word entrepreneur meant small business person. And so that's who we spoke to, and that's how this word was used. And that's when I came in, I looked at a culture in which the word entrepreneur meant something totally different. It was being used by people who were not traditional small business people. It was being used by people who did everything across every part of life and business and career and whatever. And what I found was that the thing that they all have in common is that they're people who go and make things happen for themselves. So the commonality to me is that an entrepreneur is someone who does not wait for somebody else to do something for them. They take it upon themselves to figure it out. How can they use whatever resources are available to them, that if not create new resources, they are just resourceful. And
right.
they build things out of nothing, and they take control of their own destiny. And I think that people get divided. You can divide people rather simply into people who are self-starters and who will do that for themselves, and people who don't. And you can be a self-starter no matter whether or not you've technically started your own business in a kind of small business way, or you could work for someone else, but you create those opportunities for yourself. You're always hustling. You're always creating new things. It's so much about the individual at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Do you think what took you to where you are today? Because I know you worked in a few other publications before you arrived at your current position. So what kind of traits do you see in yourself that allowed you to hustle your way to where you are today?
I had always wanted to do more than I was doing right now. That, I think, was the driving force for me. I started small. I started super small in a community newspaper in central Massachusetts. And there's a poor network connection. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. You're completely. The video doesn't work anymore. All right. All right, that's weird. Okay, so I'm gonna just start over so that you can edit out my nonsense.
Sure. I hear you and see you perfect.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I do not hear or see you perfectly, but as long as you hear me, then we're good. Okay. Ask me. The question was, oh, right. So what do I see? Yeah, I always found in myself that I wanted to do more than I was doing. It's like that's a really abstract way to say it. And yet that is ultimately the thing that applies to every step of my career. I was always looking at what I was doing and saying, I can do more than this. I can go bigger. I can dig deeper. I can put myself out there more. So how do I do that? What do I do? And then I would look around and I'd say, okay, well, here are things that I don't know how to do that I need to learn. And if I learn them, I bet it will lead to other opportunities. And then I would learn them. Either I'd be in a job and I could find some other thing to do. For example, at Fast Company, I was on the print magazine team, but then we had a video team and I got involved there too because I wanted to learn how to do video because I thought that video would be helpful for my career. But then there were other times where I just quit a job because I didn't think I was learning enough. And that just kept driving me. I always felt like, I tell people, work your next job. Like, don't work your current job, work your next job, which doesn't mean that you should stop working at your job. What it means is that you should be thinking about what can you learn now that will help you in the future. And then you should be developing those skill sets while at the same time doing the thing that you're already doing, because that is what's going to build the bridge for you forward. If you are thinking about working your next job, and so that is what I always do. I do it now, even though I have a really amazing gig that I'm in no rush to leave. But I look around and I say, well, okay, what opportunities does this provide me? It provides me the opportunity to stand on stage and talk to people. Okay, I should get really good at that. People want to put me on TV and interview me. Okay, I should get really good at that. These are all things that can help me in the future. They help me now, but they will also help me in the future. So I'm working those things. And I think that that's basically what entrepreneurism is. It's always looking around and saying what's available to me, what's not available to me that I want to be available to me, and how do I get it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You still hear me well?
I hear you really garbled, but if you can hear me, then
okay.
Then
but you understand me?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It just sounds like super digitized.
Weird. Okay. So the Problem Solver podcast. What strategy? Like talking about problem solving. What big problem have you had to solve, and what strategy did you use?
Oh, what problem have I had to solve? I mean, I feel like every day is solving a problem.
What's a big one?
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, I'll go back to something something that was kind of built into my last answer, and that was doing something more than I was doing. So a big problem that I had to solve was that I started in a very specific track of journalism, which was community newspapers. And most people who go into community newspapers don't escape it, or they go on to some completely other career, or they spend their entire career in local newspapers bouncing around. And I didn't want that. But I felt completely isolated because here I am working at this tiny paper. And I know that the people who are working at the places where I would want to work, the people who are working at national magazines or newspapers in New York, those people are not reading the newspaper I'm working for. They would not take my work seriously. They are not paying attention to me. And I needed to prove myself to those people. And I didn't know how to. And I didn't have any connections. And there was nobody I could call up and ask for help. I was completely alone in it. And all I had was this instinctual realization that if I stayed at this job, it would not get me to where I wanted to go. I just knew that. And I knew that there were these people out there who work at places like the Washington Post and New York Times and whatever, Entrepreneur Magazine, that I could prove myself to. I was confident that I could. And so I needed to be in a situation that I could do that. So that's why I quit my very first job. And I sat in my bedroom and I spent 9 months cold pitching editors at publications that I wanted to work for. And after that period of time, I had built up the first base of clips that helped propel my career. I had written for the Washington Post and the Boston Globe and Associated Press. And that changed it. That changed it for me. I took another newspaper job basically to make money, but then I just kept freelancing and I kept going out and proving myself. And I still basically do that. I still feel like the key to success is just not waiting for someone to come to you. You go to them and you prove to them that you are worthy of whatever it is that you're looking for. That's the key. So that's how I solved the problem for myself. That's how I got out of community newspapers. Is I literally quit and I went and I proved myself to the people who I did want to work with.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's incredibly important today, being that we have access to these people like easier than before.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would be a project that you're really excited about right now, whether it's in your personal life or the magazine?
Everything I do in some way is like a project in process. Things that would really excite me right now are, oh my God, it's so annoying. Okay. Sorry, a call was coming through my computer, which I couldn't figure out how to stop. Like for example, Pessimist Archive is one of my podcasts. I manage to get it out like every 2 months because it's so labor intensive. It would make me really excited if I could build a team around that show so that I could make that into like a more regular thing. That would be really exciting. So my wife and I have that novel that's coming out, and that's exciting all by itself, sure, and there are like all sorts of other opportunities that are associated with it. But to me, what would be really exciting is if we sell the hell out of it and then become like a writing team that people turn to, right? That like this isn't just a one-off crazy novel that the two of us wrote together, but in fact it's something that like we're like putting them out every 2 years or something. Like everything that I do is in some way, it's like I get involved in projects at whatever level I can manage in my day. So sometimes I don't have time to devote to turn a project into its fullest first realized version of itself. But I feel like as long as I keep it alive, I like sort of fan the flames of it so that the fire is then at some point then it's there and I can figure out how to grow it. And I'm not doing something. I don't do something just because there's a one-off experience. I do things because they can build to something bigger. Like that to me is the filter. Like, can this be something bigger? And if it can, then that's great. I don't have to be in a rush to get to the place where it's bigger, but I at least need to be able to see how it could get bigger and see how it could impact my career. See that, like, if I devoted myself in full to any of these things, that they could be the career. Like that podcast could be the career. The books could be the career. Like that, those are the only things I'm interested in. And then I want to do all of them.
Amazing. Well, what's the book name again? And when is it coming out?
It's coming out in a while. It's called Mr. Nice Guy. It's out on October 16th, 2018. It is about two people who sleep together each week and then critically review each other's performance in a magazine. So it's it's like a kind of comedy set in the magazine world in New York, and it's about ambition and honesty and power and just a lot of the craziness we've seen in working in media here.
Awesome. Is it fictional, I guess?
Yes. It's a novel. It's not about us.
Awesome. I imagine in your career you've probably interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Who is somebody that has stuck with you for a particular trait that they had that inspired you or that really stuck with you? Anybody that you could think of?
Oh, so many. I mean, there are so many people. I'll just talk about the very first person who springs to mind, which was so there's this guy named Sam who started Dogfish Head Brewing, very popular brewery in the States, and they're based in Delaware. And I've met with him a number of times and really liked him just because he's super down to earth and very passionate about what he does, and is just like a family guy. He's really great. I like him a lot. But the thing that really stuck with me about him is one time we were walking around his facility in Delaware, and he started telling me about how this beer that he makes, which is called 60 Minute IPA, it's their most popular beer, how it was, when it was introduced, it was a runaway hit. And he became worried that they would become known for this beer. Which, you would think like that's a great thing. Like a company makes a product and it becomes a huge seller and people know it and love it, and that's great. But not to Sam. To Sam, he saw risk, because if that beer became the thing that everyone associated his brewery with, that's one style of beer and one kind of beer. And if beer tastes change and people are no longer as interested in IPAs and they become interested in something else, well, then they're no longer interested in Dogfish, right? Then he's putting all of his eggs into one beer basket. And that is dangerous. And so he capped sales of his most popular product. He made sure that 60 Minute IPA never surpassed 50% of all of his beer sales. And that pissed off a lot of people. There were bars and retailers and customers who were upset that they could not get a hold of this beer that they loved. And he said, you know what? It's okay that they're upset. I will try to turn them on to other beers of mine. But the long-term health of this company relies upon not giving in to the momentary success of one product. We need to think more long-term, and we need to define ourselves on our own terms instead of letting one product define us. That is a bold move, and it takes a lot of guts to look into the future and then make a long-term decision that hurts in the short term. That's a really hard thing for entrepreneurs to do. He did it really well, and consequently, people think of Dogfish as a innovative brewery, not as a brewery that makes an IPA, but an innovative brewery that's constantly making new things. And that's because he said no when everyone was asking for one type of beer.
Wow, that's awesome. That is a bold movement indeed, and I can see why. Yeah, and talking about that, I was watching your Instagram earlier today, and you mentioned something about disruption being a meaningless word now. I'd love to know, what would replace the term disruption, like if you really want to cause that impact, like Dogfish did.
I'm not saying that disruption is a meaningless concept. I'm just saying that so many people use it that it doesn't have the impact that it does anymore. I don't know. Like I think that I think that business tends to pile on to certain language in a way that I don't think is helpful. So there was a time when absolutely everybody was saying that they're disrupting everything.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not the case. And I just, the reason that I say that about disruption is that I want entrepreneurs to realize that they harm themselves when they start using overused language. So when somebody pitches me their company now and they're saying that they're disrupting a space, I don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because I think that people who are truly, like, in the way that we intend the term to mean, disrupting something, aren't using the word disrupt anymore. They're like actually describing what they're doing instead of saying that they're just like disrupting it. And then there's all these other, I mean, this is like, I don't know, take by storm, redefine. Like, there are all these people who pitch me these things, and they're telling me that they're having this large impact, and I just don't believe it, because they're relying upon this old terminology. And I think that if they were truly doing what they're saying they were doing, they would be talking about it differently. So don't just use buzzwords because you hear everyone else using them. Be really specific about what you do and what value you are bringing and what impact you are having. Talk about it not in other people's terms. Talk about it in your own terms.
Got it. Yeah, exactly. And since you mentioned that, what advice would you give someone if they want to come to you and they want to pitch you their company, their story, they want to get published on the magazine? What would be the right thing for them to say for you to pay attention?
Oh, well, you have to, I mean, this doesn't just go for me. This goes for anybody at any publication.
Yeah.
You need to really get to know the publication. Most people who pitch me have clearly spent zero time getting to know the publication, or they'll pitch Problem Solvers, my other podcast, and they won't pitch me a problem that they solved. Like, it's like right there in the name of the show. Like, I'm telling you how to pitch me. It's called Problem Solvers. Tell me a problem. People don't spend time thinking. They often treat press like a cashier at a burger joint. Like, they show up and they're like, can I have my burger? Can I have my story? Can I have my feature in your magazine? No, you can't. What you need to do is get to know the publication so that you can tell me your story in a way that fits what we do. Like, spend time doing the research before you reach out. If you were to spend time really diving into Entrepreneur Magazine, you would understand the way that we tell stories and the things that we're interested in. And then you'd be able to tell me the thing about you that I'm going to be interested in. Like, if you just do that legwork instead of just treating me like a guy who's selling you a burger, your chances of getting press are tremendously higher. And I don't say that to like be some special guy who's like, you have to treat me a certain way. Like, I'm just telling you, like, I am one person in an ecosystem of entrepreneurship, right? There's like investors and customers and press and whatever. And the way that my ecosystem works is that I have a lot of people reaching out to me every day, and I can't spend a lot of time on each one. And so the things that jump out at me as natural fits for the magazine are the ones that are going to get my attention, and the other ones I just don't have time to look at, and I'm going to pass it by. That's just what's going to happen. That's
real. That's why I'm grateful to be talking to you right now. So thank you. So final question. How are you guys keeping the content fresh with so much competition today, so much noise, so much competition for attention, really? And where can we see the content of Entrepreneur moving forwards?
So I think that, how do we keep the content fresh? I mean, we keep the content fresh by talking to people. It's not some kind of secret how to do this kind of work, right? I mean, I just spend a lot of time talking to smart people. I take a lot of meetings. I go to a lot of events. I'm just constantly chatting with people, and I'm learning what matters to them, and then I'm trying to get that reflected and featured in the publication. I think that long term, what we need to do is always be mindful of where entrepreneurs are and what they're concerned about. I came in with this theory a few years ago that the thing that every entrepreneur has in common is the emotional experience of entrepreneurism, and that's the thing that no one else is really talking about. So that's where I geared the magazine, and I think that we've had a lot of success with that. That could change, and we want to make sure that we're really on top of that. But also, as a media company, you want to make sure that you're really distributed, that you're speaking to people everywhere that they are, so that we're making video, we're making podcasts, we're making events and networking opportunities and whatever, that we're just kind of all over the place. It's I feel very fortunate to be at a publication like